When I was 13, my parents started leaving me home alone at night. Nothing unusual. Every teenager goes through that at some point. Our house was small, one floor, with a narrow hallway that always felt longer at night than it did during the day. What matters is this. I always heard noises when I was alone. Light footsteps, like someone walking barefoot on the tiles. But I told myself the same thing everyone tells themselves. Old house, wind, imagination, whatever. Until something happened that I couldn't explain away. It was a Friday night, drizzling outside. I was watching TV on the couch when I heard my bedroom door softly tap shut. Not slam, not creak, just a gentle push, as if someone lightly pressed their fingers against it. I assumed it was the draft, but the window in my room was closed. I went to check, opened the door. Nothing. Everything exactly where I left it. When I walked back to the living room, the TV was off. I thought I must have hit the remote by accident, so I ignored it. 2 weeks later, something else happened. I was washing dishes when I heard someone cough behind me. A quick, dry, human cough. I spun around. The kitchen was empty. For a few seconds, I just stood there, heart pounding, trying to convince myself it came from outside. But the window was closed, and I had headphones in. There was no way that sound traveled from the street. Still, I swallowed the lie. That's what we do when the truth feels too heavy. But then came the night everything fell apart. I was in bed, almost asleep, when I heard footsteps in the hallway. Slow, deliberate. The kind of footsteps an adult makes when trying not to wake a child. I stopped breathing. The steps moved right up to my bedroom door and stopped. I forced myself out of bed and opened the door. The hallway was empty. But something was wrong. The light in the living room was on. I knew for a fact I had turned it off. When I walked to the living room, a cold wave hit my chest. The couch cushion was pressed down, like someone had just been sitting there moments ago. I touched it. It was still warm. At that point, I couldn't lie to myself anymore. I locked my room and waited all night for my parents to come home. The next morning, when things felt less terrifying, I told my mom everything. All the noises, all the footsteps, the cough, the warm seat. She stayed quiet for a few seconds. Then she said, "I hear things too." She laughed after, like she was trying to play it off, but her eyes didn't match the laugh. I asked my stepdad. He didn't laugh. He didn't look surprised. He just looked tired. When I pressed him, he finally said, "This house has always made noise. The less attention we give it, the better." That broke me, because now I knew it wasn't just me. It wasn't imagination. It wasn't the wind. It wasn't childhood paranoia. The house had sounded like this long before I was born, and they had been pretending for years. The worst part came a few years later, when we were moving out. A neighbor stopped by and asked casually, "Did you ever hear anything at night?" My dad froze. My mom looked away. The neighbor continued, "The man who lived here before you, he never slept inside the house. Said the place moved too much at night." That was the first and only time I ever saw my parents genuinely scared. And that's when I realized they always knew. They just didn't want to admit it. Because once you admit something like that, you can't unhear the footsteps anymore. And you start wondering if the house was ever empty when you thought you were alone.